Welcome to Case Clothed with Alex and Katrin.
I'm Alex.
I'm Katrin. This is our first episode of something that's been in the making for a long time.
Yeah, we're really excited because for those of you who don't know, we used to work on a morning show together. I was an anchor, Katrin was our reporter in the field, and then we did a ton of stuff in studio together. And we've always wanted to have our own show, and now feels like the right time.
It does.
Yeah.
And we would work, like I would backfill on the anchor desk quite a bit on CTV. And we always had really good on-screen chemistry, and we're also just friends in real life, so it makes sense.
And we're now part of this new collective called Clothed, and our contribution to this is going to be video content.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about a variety of topics, from body image to women's issues to self-love to things we come across on the internet. There's really no limit.
Anything that like resonates with us or that we feel might resonate with all of you watching. We're going to tackle it. We're going to talk about it, give our opinions on it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot more laid back than the version you may have seen of us on the news.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll see a lot of our personality come through as well, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah. So in our first episode today, we came across a clip. I came across a clip on TikTok, and the story kind of resonated with me. So we're going to roll the clip, and we're going to talk about it.
So I just got dress coded at our local library at baby story time, and this is literally what happened. So this is what I wore, a little cropped sweater situation. It's from like the teenager section at Target. It's that like weird Wild Fable brand, probably not age appropriate, whatever. These jeans, they're Topshop mom jeans, 1,000 years old. They're literally called like the mom jean. And this is what I wore. And I thought wearing a sweater is like a step up from my usual sweatshirt, t-shirt, leggings, jeans situation. So I was feeling good about myself. And she ruined that. So I'm chasing my kids around. They're acting wild. And I always get a little stressed out that they don't sit during story time. So after story time, this librarian comes up to me and she goes, "Are you mom or babysitter?" And I thought, oh my gosh, she thinks I'm young. So I go, "Oh, I'm mom, like not the babysitter." So she goes, "You should know better," in like this judgy tisk kind of tone. And so I immediately started apologizing for my girls' behavior. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. You know, it's really hard for them to sit still. Like, we're working on it. Like, that's kind of why we come here. And, whatever." And she goes, "No, your outfit." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like what? Did I like not button my sweater up? Like, what's happening? And she just like motions to it. And I realize it's because it's a little bit cropped. And when I carry my giant 1-year-old, it like raises up and shows maybe like 1 inch of my like mommy belly with its cute little stretched out belly button. And apparently that's inappropriate to show any midriff when you're like edging into 40. And newsflash, I guess I disagree.
Okay, so right off the bat, when I came across this, I thought it was going to be something so much worse. Mm-hmm. And it was just that this mom's shirt had rode up a little bit. And I guess like what struck me is like, first of all, the policing of other women's bodies and clothes and stuff. Do you think a place like a library has a certain dress code?
No. But I don't know. I don't think, first of all, my thoughts watching that clip were what could have anyone possibly said to her about what she was wearing?
Yeah, because she's clearly like completely covered.
I mean, I guess I think back to I went to Catholic school and there was dress code, and I feel like maybe a library would be similar to a Catholic school in the sense of, I don't know, but I just think we're at the point where it's like you don't have to like what someone else is wearing, but you just don't get to say anything about it either.
Do you also think, like, is there, like, an element of, like, once you become a mother, do you cross into another realm of, like, dress codes? Like, just because you're carrying an infant? Like, do you have to be a certain matronly because you're a mother?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the implication from this person calling out her dress code. She was there with her children from what we heard in the clip. I mean, do I personally think that? No.
No.
I think that I just think women should be able to wear generally whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was in high school, actually, I have a story. And I said I went to Catholic school, and I was wearing a top, I remember, that showed a little bit of my stomach. I was 16. I was also like a very innocent 16-year-old girl. And the principal of the school came up to me and shouted at me, like yelled at me about dress code. And I remember this experience so well. Like it was imprinted in my brain of this grown man shouting at me about what I was wearing.
Yeah.
And he was enforcing, obviously, a policy the school had, but it was a very scarring experience.
I bet.
To have a grown man yell at me about my clothing. And also it was awkward because this grown man was talking about like the body part that was showing. And I mean, the way that women's, or even I guess like girls, really, if you're a 16-year-old girl, the way it's been policed over the years has changed, I think, because I remember we weren't even allowed to show our shoulders.
Yeah.
But that experience was really negative, and it like stayed with me.
Definitely.
And when I think about this woman getting told as a grown woman by someone else, I just don't think what other people wear on their body is any of your business, really.
And I think there's dress codes for different things. Like if you were going to a very fancy dinner and they require a dinner jacket, or they require, like there are places in which dress codes I think can still stand the test of time.
Okay, so if this mother wore a bikini top into the library, maybe that wouldn't be the best choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she's wearing a sweater and if
jeans.
And if her shirt rode up, and to be honest, even if it was summer and she was wearing a crop top or something, it's summer.
There's nothing inappropriate showing, and she's there with her kids, and the whole point is like that she's out in the community. I don't know, it really struck a chord with me the wrong way.
Well, and if a man was wearing a shirt and it rode up when he was carrying his kid, would anybody say anything?
He'd be called a good dad, probably.
Well, nobody would even notice.
Yeah.
They just would think, oh, his shirt rode up. Like, it wouldn't even be, it just wouldn't happen.
But I think too, like it's also like a really interesting discourse with like when women cross certain milestones, like what the society says they can and can't wear. When I was working at the Belong Lifestyle, the store, I would have women come in and say like, oh, I think this is too young for me. This is too mature for me. I don't think I can pull this off anymore. Where do you think the line is when it comes to like age and clothes?
I think it actually just has to do with how you feel about what you're wearing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 37, and I've had that feeling too where I've gone into a store and thought, oh, maybe this is like a little too young for me. But it's not about what other people think of me wearing it. It's about just like how I feel in it. So if I don't feel totally comfortable in it, which maybe is about what other people think now that I really think about it. But I don't think so. I think it's just what you feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that there's age limits around what you should be able to wear. I think we see a lot of women like breaking the barriers around what that means. I think that when I saw, so for example, I was telling you this earlier, I think I saw this video online. It was Jennifer Lopez, who I think is now in her early 50s.
Yeah.
And she was wearing a pair of jeans. She was out, the paparazzi was filming her, and she had on sort of like a crop top. And that had nothing to do with the video, but the comments, there was just all these comments talking about how she was too old to be dressing like this, how, like, grow up, you're in your early 50s. And it was just very, like, why can't she wear it?
Yeah.
She obviously feels comfortable wearing confident wearing it, and it just...
I think those comments like speak more to how people like, well, I'm in my 50s and I wouldn't wear that, like,
which is fine.
That's okay. Yeah, that's good for. But like, I think that's the point of like feeling equal and like not having this policing of our bodies. Is like, if I want to wear like a Pokemon t-shirt that is like juvenile, like I'm going to do it. But also if I want to dress vintage and wear like 1940s and like look a bit older, like I think that's fine too. Like,
do you think where's the line for you, or do you think there is a line?
No, I really don't, because when I see, like, I'm personally like a fashion watcher. Like when I go out in public, my eyes are scanning, like I'm looking for good outfits. And if I see like an older woman wearing something very like playful and not stereotypically like senior citizen, I'm always like, kudos to you, you look great. Like, you know, like expressing yourself, expressing your beauty. But I think on the flip side of that, there is an interesting discussion when you look at, for example, grade 8s now. When we were in grade 8, I don't know about you, but I was experimenting with makeup, but it wasn't very good, and I was definitely in like the early 2000s, so I was in like leggings, layered tank tops, jean skirts. Like, I feel like it was this very, like, looking back now it feels cringe, but it was like age appropriate in terms of like, I wasn't trying to look 25. I was just wearing what was cool at the mall. And I also didn't have any older siblings. I was the oldest.
Me too.
So it was like I was just trailblazing for myself. But I find when I go online now with the TikTok generation, what is the generation under Gen Z? Is it Gen Alpha?
Oh gosh. I don't know.
Gen Alpha. Okay. Our producer is confirming for us.
Gen Alpha.
Yeah. I find that like they're pushed past the awkward phase, and it's just going straight from like childhood to like Sephora, full makeup, choreographed dances. Like, I feel like there's a lot more pressure with social media and the grade 8s now.
Well, and I think that is like a whole other topic too, about, you know, when you're a kid and when you're an adult, it's different. And even in the situation where I was policed on my clothing, the principal may have been coming from a place of also just trying to protect me as a teenager, because I was very innocent. I didn't really think about it. I just liked what I was wearing. Yeah. And it is, you know, the adult's job to you know, teach kids things. Like, they're kids, they don't know everything yet.
And not every person who sees them is going to have innocent intentions.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But I think, and that's the problem with the internet now. It's like you said, there's this jump where you see, you know, 15-year-old girls that are wearing clothing that like I'm wearing, and they look similar to like a 25-year-old, and that isn't probably very safe,
right?
Especially for girls to be looking like that on the internet and stuff like that.
Internet safety is
I mean, we were totally sheltered from that when I was 15. I don't think there was like very limited internet. There was no photos like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. And I was the same. I was doing my makeup at the bus stop. It was horrendous. I looked like a 12-year-old trying to do my makeup. It's very different now. And I think that has to do with a lot of the content that young girls are consuming. I also think that it's really important to be teaching men. Like, I feel that when I was a teenager, the onus was entirely on women and girls. Like, you shouldn't dress like this
to distract the boys.
Yeah, you'll distract the boys. And when I think about it, I think, no, boys have a brain between their ears as well. And I understand there's hormones and all these things, but you can teach boys as well to behave properly and respect women and all of that. And I even think when you get into your early 20s and it's still similar, because there was just a lot in the past, this socialization of men and women, where men weren't in control and women were. So it's like, like you said, the onus was on us. So if we don't dress this way, we won't attract bad attention. But if a woman is dressed a certain way, it just shouldn't attract bad attention, because the onus should also be on the man. Totally. And the same thing should be taught, I think, with boys and girls in school as well, right? It's like, if a girl's shoulders are showing, big deal, their shoulders.
Right.
You know?
And I think it's like up to each, like when you're under the age of 18, it's under each individual family and parent, like whatever
that's up to you.
They're comfortable with, for sure. But I also just like this idea of policing and like going up to someone and commenting on their outfit and if it's appropriate. Like, I just feel like it's become so much
with adults.
With adults, sorry. It's become so much more prevalent with the advent of comment sections. Because I don't know about you, but oftentimes, like, it is just so easy to, like, for anonymous people to just hit enter on something. They don't have to sit down and write us a letter. When we were both on TV, Katrin and I both received good handful of
Lovely
commentary. Yeah, that was not so nice. And people really taking the time to tell us that if they didn't like our outfit, they didn't like how we looked, they didn't like our makeup, they didn't like our hands.
Yeah, that was a real email.
Yeah, they didn't like Katrin's hands.
Yeah, I really like my hands. I do
too. I love your hands. But I find that, like, I'm wondering where this originates from, of like, your outfit is now an issue for me.
I mean, I think that's human nature with everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, people, generally speaking, I think if someone doesn't like something like that about someone else, you said this earlier, it's usually to do with something that they're uncomfortable with, or that they don't like about themselves, or that they wouldn't do themselves, and it's like a projection onto that person. I think, like I said, you don't have to like someone's outfit. You can think in your mind, oh, I don't like that outfit.
Yeah.
That's totally up to you. Or you could think, I wouldn't wear that.
Yeah. And I think there's like definitely a generational shift when it comes to like loving yourself and what you're comfortable in, and loving your body. Whereas I feel like generations before us, it was such a common norm to not like yourself and to constantly be improving. Like, oh, if I could just drop those last
Oh, for sure.
If I could, you know, like in the 50s, like, women would go to bed with a full face of makeup on and never let their husbands see them without makeup, you know? And so I think there's just this like shift that's coming down generation by generation. Like, I feel like the generation below us, Gen Z, are really not caring. Like, they will wear whatever they want, and it really doesn't matter to them what social commentary is. But I feel like our generation as millennials, we're still kind of trying to like find the
break that.
And find where the line is.
I mean, when I think back to my 20s, kind of before the whole self-love movement started, and the way that I would think about things to do with what you were just talking about, like just how I looked in general versus now, and the way that I would talk to myself about my body and all, like, it was just, but that's how we were conditioned, because that was what we received from the media at all times. And I remember one time my sister said to me, I said something negative about how I looked. We were going on vacation somewhere, and it was going to be like a bunch of swimsuit events, and I was not feeling good. And she said, I said something negative, and she said, don't talk about my sister like that. And that totally flipped that moment, like, shifted how I thought. Because I thought, I would never talk about my sister like that.
Or a friend.
Like, why would I talk about myself like this? But that's how we were conditioned. And I think you're right, it is changing. I think Gen Z is like so amazingly ahead of where we were.
Well, and I remember even in when I went to university from 2010 to 2014, and that was kind of like the height of the Tumblr era. And Tumblr was really dangerous for a lot of reasons. It was I found it to be very pro eating disorder, pro, like, the images that were shared were very, like, there was like this Tumblr aesthetic of being like kind of emo, kind of like 2010s, like very, very thin, like bands and all this. And so I feel like I remember body positivity coming up like here and there on Tumblr back then, and it being almost a joke. Like, it was like, oh my god, you love that about yourself? That's so cringy. That's like so embarrassing.
I was never on Tumblr
because you're so old. But it was a dangerous place, because it was just, you were being inundated with these images, and it was before Instagram was kind of starting to get up and running, but it wasn't the Instagram that we know today. It was like a lot of pictures of your dinner and like a lot of filters.
Oh, I miss those days.
Me too. When social media was a lot easier.
I feel like I still post pictures of my dinner, so that just ages me.
Agreed. But yeah, Tumblr was like a tough time, and I know if anyone's watching, listening to this, and who knows, there was a lot of pressure to be this type of fashion, this type of body type. And even because I've always been plus size. Like, I remember like when Forever 21 started carrying a plus size section, it was like very, very exciting, because you never knew, like, for those who don't know, like a double XL in straight size versus a 2X in plus size, they are two different things.
Oh, okay.
If you are a 2X as a plus size person and you go to try on a XXL in straight sizing, that size model is based off of the straight sizing, so it's just bigger, whereas plus size clothing is like its own entire proportion thing. So previously Forever 21 would have extra large and sometimes XXL, but when they introduced their plus line, it was like very exciting as a young girl because you could have young trendy clothes. You weren't going to like some older ladies plus size store, you know? And so I remember like being excited that I could be trendy and be in my own body and wear some of like the Tumblr fashions, but like have it fit for me. But it was tough to navigate like being plus size and going through university in this like transitional time when like being thin was like such a priority, and then going to school for broadcasting and then getting right into media, where it's like there is, at least for the old school world of media, there was this like cookie cutter model of what a news anchor is. And it was like a very small blonde anchor bob type of person. But I find like even in like you've worked for news starting in what year?
I was starting in news when I was 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started in 2014, and I feel like there's been such a shift in terms of like on-air talent and like the look. Have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's
presenters?
just like a lot less based on that cookie cutter look,
like
overall.
Yeah.
I still think that there is like a certain degree of you have to look a certain way or whatever. I think it also depends what you're doing, whether you're like live reporting in the field or at the anchor desk. I think it's changed. I mean, on a lot of networks in the US, it has not changed.
No, it hasn't.
But on some, it has still. Like, there's a lot of really big news anchors that don't fit into the stereotype. Like Rachel Maddow does not fit into the cookie cutter version of what a news reporter, news anchor looks like. I think, I mean, I remember that time frame of the really thin look too, and it's interesting now because I feel like now there's a lot more body types just generally represented that are admired or looked at in a positive way, whereas back then there was one type. And I remember when Jennifer Lopez became like a big deal, and I was never I mean I wasn't skinny quote unquote when I was younger, but I was never like a thin the look that was in like the Kate Moss that look
or like bones or
this wasn't my body type. I have a really close friend that is her body type. She's just really thin, and when JLo became popular, that made me feel good because she had like a butt and she was like very physically, like she was very fit. And I think that's actually where the narrative kind of started to change. That was like the beginning of it changing, I think. And I remember, but I just remember that thin. And it was like I mean, I had curly hair too, and the other look was like not thin hair, but it was like straight hair.
Yes, definitely.
And no body fat.
Yes. For me, I will say so Adele came onto the scene and she was a curvier woman when she first emerged, which was really, really cool to see. But I honestly think, and I know it's relatively recent, but when Lizzo came onto the scene, and it was very I feel like Adele's aesthetic when she first emerged was very like classic singer, and she was curvier, but she definitely wore, full sleeves and full gowns, and it was like a lot more of a different aesthetic than when Lizzo came onto the scene. And it was such a different vibe because when Lizzo started, she was very like, I'm big and I'm sexy and what of it? And it was such a different, it wasn't apologetic. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just loving myself despite, my size, or like, I'm loving myself where I am. Because I think Hollywood, there's like such pressure. Like, how many plus size folks have we seen that have shrunk down? Like from Adele, Rebel Wilson. Like, we've seen these like curvy stars that like cave to the pressure, and there's like absolutely zero judgment. Like, they can, it's their bodies and their health, and they can do whatever. But I think for me, like that Lizzo moment of just like, like I'm sexy and this is my body and like this is appealing, and like I was like, yeah, like, why aren't we more of this? And that really helped me, like, just embrace my body, I think.
Yeah, I also think there's just a lot of celebrities on every spectrum of size now who are just being more unapologetic about their bodies and not like, I remember Jessie J would post like just unretouched photos of herself on the beach, and she's you know, like a pretty average sized woman, but you could see that she had cellulite. Or even like Kourtney Kardashian now just posts her photos as is, and I think that that is important to just see. Like, anyone can, you know, you can make a photo look a certain way. When you take a candid photo and you post it like that, no one's body is perfect. No one's, even people whose bodies are perfect.
Yeah,
you know, correct. Like, it's not
the human body itself. Perfect. Yeah,
and I think that people are looking at it more now as like a functional tool versus this thing you look at. Yeah, like even in the way that a lot of whatever influencers, or I think it was Camila Cabello, she posted something as well, like just saying this is my body, and like it functions and I love it, and I don't care that my stomach isn't totally flat or whatever. I think there's like a shift in how we just look at bodies as like tools to do something with, right? And like
the strength and like what we're grateful for, that like
it's a machine, right? That like helps you operate and gives you tools to do things on a daily basis. Yeah, it's not like a piece of art.
Totally. Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like a
lot of cool tattoos. But
for sure. But I love too that like the people in like the disabled sphere, in the queer sphere, and anyone that has like a different look outside of stereotypes, like there's been a lot more influencers in that sphere as well, being like, this is what I look, this is how my body works, this is what I like. There's been like a lot more influencers in the like chronic illness sphere, and it's just like really great to see that representation, and like, this is what I go through and this is how I feel beautiful, and like that's what I want to continue to see more of. Like, I don't need as much of the Tumblr era influencers of just like, this is me pretty. Like, I want to see what you are, what makes you beautiful outside of that.
Yeah I agree.
Yeah.
I almost said something there.
What?
I don't know when I stopped talking, because obviously I didn't have anything that important to say.
Classic hatred.
No, it's I think too it's important though. I mean, sometimes I also think that not everyone's comfortable sharing all their flaws or whatever, right? Like
their insecurities.
We live in so I think it's in the world that we live in, or if you're in the social media world, it's definitely amazing to see authenticity and people being real and all that. But I do get that some people just don't want to be.
And it's a journey.
Not at all, right?
It's a walk. It's a journey to be able to get to a point where you feel comfortable enough to like show up authentically and not want to put a million filters on, which I still struggle with too. Like, I am by no means someone who's sitting here being like, I love myself every single day of the year and it's like, I still edit my pictures too, and I'm really trying to push past it. Like, sometimes like I'll be so far deep in editing something that I go, you know what, I'm just gonna post the original. This is too much work, and it doesn't even look like me anymore, so I don't care. So I'm trying to get more comfortable with posting the unfiltered, unedited, but like,
also I think once you start to get into like aging, that's a whole other thing.
Completely.
And constantly having our photos taken as we age. We were talking about this earlier today with Dina, like just how much we're in photographs all the time, looking at our own faces. That it like overexposes you to what you look like.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good thing.
Right? Like, if you think of like thousands of years ago, we lived in tribes of like 100 people maybe, and there was like very few mirror surfaces.
Honestly, I would like to be in that time.
Yeah, like how do we get back to hunting and gathering?
I'm like, can we just live on a commune with no mirrors?
I think there's quite a few people that would go for that.
Like, sign me up.
Truly. I think we're gonna end it there. This is the first of many episodes. If you have any topics for us or anything you'd like us to cover, please let us know on our social medias. And otherwise, I'm excited to start this journey with you, my friend.
Me too. It's been too long since we were on camera together. Like Alex said, make sure to let us know if there's anything you're interested in, anything you'd like us to talk about. We're pretty open to chatting about most things.
Yeah, we're open books.
We have a lot of opinions. We like to share them.
Yeah, we're open books, but this is case closed.